So, welcome to the second part of the Smart4You presentation. So this part will be a presentation about the tool pack we call AOS Service Check. Now, so the AOS Service Check is a tool in the tool pack that we use to verify and validate if the AOS server runs. Now, it seems to be a very simple task to test if the application is running, but the fact is that the AOS server is hosting multiple services. It's hosting more Windows Communication Foundations, it's hosting batch inside the AOS, it's hosting client. And the thing is that we actually are capable of having the AOS server running, fully operational, but no client would be allowed to connect to the AOS server. If the AOS server is set up in the training mode, we won't see that from outside, we won't know that. So what is that actually, the AOS Service Check? Again, it's a set of PowerShell scripts. And what it basically does, it uses a small piece of component inside AX. So this requires a small piece of AX code to be implemented. It will then call this code from outside and check if you can log in, both on the Windows Communication Foundation and also as a rich client. Now, if this communication cannot be established, it will then write into the event viewer that there's an error on logging onto the system. It will start notifying the IT sysman, and it will also potentially be able to restart the services. So how do we configure it? So on a machine that hosts this monitor, this service check, we have a configuration file here. Configuration file defines where we set up the configuration, where the foundation, and we also saw in the PowerShell RUNBOOK, where the configuration, what are the event source, so the event source that we write into the event viewer. For each and every machine, we will create a folder, just like this. In my setup, I have these 6 AOS servers. And you can see AOS 02 has 2 instances, 1 and 2. And within each of them, we have an AXE file to connect to the AX. We have a configuration file that defines various settings about the primary AOS. We also have an environment list that we can use. So this environment list is actually a list that defines a set of servers that relates to this AOS. So for instance, if we have a one-to-one relationship bound between an AOS server and a reporting server, if the AOS server goes down and it cannot be communicated to, this will also bring down the reporting server. For that would by an agent not work as well, and thereby being able for the load balancing system to know these things and shift over. And again, we also have a service config file here where we have a dozens of settings. So first of all, do we actually run this check? Do we want to auto start the system? If it's stopped, do we want to auto stop the system? So this means if there's an error, do we want to stop it and then by default start it again? How many times do we want to try to see if there's an error before we do these things? Do we want to write the event directly to the event viewer on the remote server or on the central server where we are running the scripts from? Do we want to write to the monitor? Do we want to send an email if there's an error? If there's a positive feedback, this means if the service actually is running, do we want to get that feedback in the event every time? Which environment are we running in? And then there's a couple of other features inside. There's a drain user feature, and there's a data flush feature. The data flush feature is actually a feature where the system on a regular basis can try to flush the data. Each AOS server is flushing its data every midnight by default. The only problem here, the only challenge here is that if at midnight a transaction is running on the data set that the AOS server is trying to flush, it won't flush. It's fair enough if you're running data in them and you don't want the system to flush the data in between. The problem is though that all the full table cached data won't be refreshed. And this means at some point in time it will take more hours, more days before you see any changes in data that is cached on a full table scale. Now with this data flush you can actually set up that it in intervals of, in this case, in 5 minutes from the interval of 11:30 to 12, it tries every 5 minutes to do the flush. So the chances are that actually it can do the flush. The drain users is a feature where you can actually, if you have set your AOS server to drain in the AOS, it actually drains the user. It's actually cut off all the user and get it to be without any user connection on. So these are some of the things that are capable in this service tool. Now, when you run this, you run it in a scheduled task. So you set this system up in a scheduled task, one task for each AOS server. So in this case, it runs every 3 minutes and verifies that my AOS server are running. So if I were to go in on my AOA event viewer here and connect to the server, look into the Windows log, you should see here, and then I'll filter the current log, event source, there it is. You can see it's that for every 3 minutes or so, it writes in here. You can see it executes AX logon single server using. It writes that it is positive feedback. So, if it cannot run, it will actually try to log on another server, on another way, to check if it's a draining, or it will come up with the failure in the event viewer. Now, one of the neat features in the tool is that it's also capable of going into a maintenance mode. So let me try to connect to like this here. We have the application log here. Filter the log. Filter it for the event source. Yeah. Let's try to clear it just to see what happens in here. Now, in combination with the RUNBOOK, there's actually a number of possibilities. So the first thing that you can actually, the system support is that if you in here write a file, let's say you write 10.main. What you will see is that when the system runs, force it to run here, it will actually now write a information here that the AX service is in maintenance mode until 21 minutes past 7, and it's 12 minutes, so it's in the next 10 minutes. So for the next 3 or 4 rounds, it will actually go in maintenance mode. So the app monitor consists of these folders as we saw. And one of the features that you can do is in that app folder, you can actually create yourself a small file. You can name 5.main. That means we put the system, the AOS 01, in 5 minutes maintenance mode. So when we execute this, and let me do this manually, not wait these 3 minutes, what you will actually be able to see now is that In the runbook, as we saw in the previous presentation, you'll now see that every service is related to AOS 01 is now stopping. So you can see the first thing that is stopping is the mobile application connector. The next one that should be stopping is the import-export framework, because it all sits on AOS 01. And then we should see that the AOS 01 will then be stopped. Now the system is now stopped for 5 minutes, and this means after 5 minutes this file will be removed by the system itself. And so if I do that manually, so let's just say that this is 5 minutes, I'll remove the file, and then the system will run again. What you then will see is that the system in the opposite direction will start again. So you can see it's yellow, so AOS 01 is start. So this is a feature where you can actually now set the AOS server in maintenance mode for a period of time. So if you have a patching window, you want to patch something on your AOS, so you want to investigate something, so you want to stop the services, you want to be able to reboot the server without the AOS server starting again, then you put this here in maintenance mode. This makes the system not start up again. So all the services here is actually set to manual, because it's controlled by this AOS Service Check. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes, and then the system will be started again. Okay, so we'll be there in a short while. Now, this has been built in to the runbook as a feature as well. So if I go on this environment and hit action menu, I have a number 6 here says set AOS server in maintenance mode. So I can go in here and say I want to execute this one, I want to continue. So which AOS server do I want to set in a maintenance mode? So I can say AXV AOS 01. And what instance? It will be 1 for the instance. And you can see right now it's actually in start pending, because it's still starting. It's the one that we are starting up. So let's just shortly abort this here, see what happens if it started. But we could, for argument's sake, just try to set AOS 02 in maintenance mode. So we'll go 6. Go continue AXV-AOS 02 and instance 1. You can see it's running. Say continue, and for how long time? Give it 5 minutes, and the system will now have created this small 5.main on the AOS 02. So this means through the runbook you are able, without having administrator right on services, without having administrator right for all the tools, because you're running the runbook, you're able to set the system in maintenance mode for a period of time. Now you can reboot, you can patch, you can do whatever, and you don't even have to remember to remove it, because the system will automatically, after these 5 minutes plus minus this interval that you have set your scheduler, it will actually then restart the system. So we should now see that AOS 02, now you see AOS 01 is running, and you can see that if I run the AOS 02, you would see that it should now shut down that AOS 02, just like the same way it did with the AOS 01. And in this scenario, it seems that we don't have any relationship between AOS 02 and any other services, so that it's only the AOS 2 that will be shutting down. So AOS 02 is now shut down, and the system will wait the required 5 minutes, and then it will start it up again. We don't want to wait for that. So we'll just get rid of the file manually. Just run this AOS 02, and the system will now restart. So we can remote from the runbook through the AOS Service Check, start and stop the AOS services in a controlled manner. So in the runbook that we saw in the previous presentation, you actually stop the AOS services right now. You have to manually remember to start it, but here we can stop it in an interval in a period, and we don't need to remember to restart the system. And also because the services are manually, not set up as automatically, when you reboot the machine, the AOS server will not fire up until this service check fires it up, and if it's still in maintenance mode, it won't do anything about it. And as we saw before, when we are on the system and look into the event viewer, we'll get all the information here about when the system is in maintenance mode and what has happened on the system. Okay. Now, another very, very important feature on this here is actually when you go in production with new code. So one of the things that you need to do when you actually do go into production is you want to stop the environment correctly. So how do you stop the environment correctly? Yes, as you can go in, you can stop each services. You can be here and you can stop the services, stop all listed services as in here. But the problem is that if a server, something else happens, somebody starts the system again, it will be started. If another person, whatever, starts fires up the services, it will start up again. But there's another feature here on the action menu called Set AOS Server in Maintenance Mode, Full Maintenance Mode. So that is number 5. So what this does, it actually toggles between maintenance mode and not maintenance mode. So I've toggled that maintenance mode now. And the same feature as we saw before that was looking for this small file is now looking for a parameter that tells that I would like to have all the servers in maintenance mode. So what we will see when, within these 3 minutes, when the scheduled task starts running. So let me just run them all. What you will see now in the runbook is that all the AOS services, all the setup is now stopping. So this will actually stop all the AOS services with all the related services in the correct manner. So each AOS server has some corresponding services attached to it, defined in the definition of the system, and everything will be stopped in a correct manner. And when everything is stopped correctly, I'm not sure that I have attached all the elements, all the services in my setup, but as you can see, my reporting services are not stopping, my World Wide Web services are not stopping. So they should have been attached to one of these services, because they are bound to one of these services. So management reporter services, that's on the RPT01. So let's just actually try to see what happens on that one. So RPT01, this is this machine. Let us check AX AX configuration. So this is actually connecting to AOS 01. So AOS 01 should actually be connected. The management reporter should be connected to AOS 01. So let's try to do that. So we'll go into AOS 01, and here in that environment list we have here, we can actually see that these are the services that are attached, currently attached to the AOS Server 01. Actually, let me open this here up in Visual Studio. It's a little bit easier. Okay, so now let me add the two management reporter services here, and I know by incident where I can find these ones. So these are here. These are these two management reporter sections here. Like this. So I'll bind this to this AOS Service Check AOS 01. What we'll see happens now is when I run that AOS 1 again, you should see in the runbook in a minute we should see that the management reporter services also is stopped by the system, and all the AOS is down. We can now do deployment, we can now reboot, we can now do whatever we want on the full system. And when we're done, in this scenario, when we're done, we need to go in and toggle back. So we will say, do you want to toggle back to the maintenance mode? And when we then again run schedule tasks, run them all, they're not running already, you should start seeing AOS server coming up. As you can see, a management reporter service is coming up, so everything is coming up nice and neatly. So the AOS Service Check is a kind of a simple tool that helps maintain the services and test the services is running correctly. Also, it is the tool that makes sure that you can, in a correct and professional manner, maintain and set your AOS services in maintenance mode with the corresponding services, so that you can actually handle your machines without having to stop the AOS service, disable the service, and all these things you have to do if you want to reboot the machine, because in the nature of the AOS server, there is nothing called maintenance mode. It will just restart after you reboot the machine. So I hope this made some sense for you. It's not a big tool, it's kind of part of the Smart4You. It can run separately, but it works the best when it works together with the runbook. Okay, thank you very much.